What's going on, everybody? So this is going to be a tutorial and a asset demo. For the most part, we're going to be showing you how to replicate everything we're about to see, about 90% of it. So let's go ahead and take a look at what a hinge door is, or a hinge joint. You can use it for all kinds of things. In this example, we're going to be making a door. So what is a hinge joint? Well, a hinge joint lets you rotate an object like it's on a hinge, like doors. Of course, other things use hinges as well. You can kind of use your imagination for that. But just as an example, I wanted to kind of make like a swinging kitchen door like you'd see in bars, restaurants, and some older houses. So this is kind of what it does. It'll swing and then eventually return to a resting position. So the way we're going to be setting it up in the tutorial will work perfectly for VR players, or if you touch it with a like another object that has a collider. So for example, this card, what it won't work for is players without a collider on their avatar. Now, I wrote a script to get around that. We're not going to replicate the script. I'll have that on my Patreon, but this will work for everybody else. If you're in VR, or I don't know, you have like a stick they can use to push it open, or even throw something at it. As you can see here, though, I am just on a avatar with no collider, and we used a script to get it to work instead. But enough rambling. Let's go ahead and see how to kind of make one of these. And what we're going to do is just full on make a new one. Now, I guess before we get into that, I do want to show you kind of a caveat with hinge joints. So I have this just random cylinder here as an example to demo this. If you run into this error when you're making a hinge joint door or something with hinge joints, you can see we have a good gap here, and that allows for our door to rotate without colliding into it. But if we put it too close, like let's say right there, we probably won't have enough room to fully rotate our door without it colliding with this post, which, like in real life, if you had that happen, means your door is not going to be able to open all the way. And similarly, you can see it limits its rotation. So if you set your door up according to this video and it still won't open like you want it to, it might be colliding with another object. Now, of course, you could disable collision on your object that it's colliding with, and that will fix your issue. But that if you are running into that, that might be why. Just a quick little help for a bug fix in case you run into that. Now, let's get into making this from scratch. So we started with just a basic cube, so we're just going to do that again. Here's our cube. We'll just put it over here, and we're going to make it a rough door shape. Good enough. A little smaller, and we'll try to size it accordingly. There we go. Now we have pretty much another one. So what we're going to need is a hinge joint. Not a hinge joint 2D, but just a hinge joint. Now this will automatically put a rigid body on our door, which we need. And we will also need to adjust these angular limits after we check use limits. Now we can check the edit angular limits. Now this might put your hinge joint somewhere where you do not want it. So if that's the case, it might be a little easier to uncheck this for the moment, because this is the rotation axis we want. So this would make it swing kind of like this, almost like a dog door. And we want it to open like a regular door. So how we change that is by adjusting the axis. So we just adjust the y-axis And now we need to adjust the anchor to be where we want it to go. And I think we're actually going to have it as -1, so it's going, this little arrows facing down. So now we're adjusting the axis to kind of line it up on the edge there. We'll say -5, -0.5, excuse me. And then we are going to take this Y down to a 0, which sets it at the middle. So yours might be a little different depending on the rotation of your object. Now you can hit auto configure connected anchor, that is okay. And for the rest of this you can leave as is. Now we're gonna go back to our limits and use limits, and you'll see you have these two little grippies now, which you can adjust this way if you'd like. But all that does is let you kind of slider configure our min and max. And we know we want it to open 90 degrees. But if you wanted it to open more than 90 degrees, let's say 120 or something like that, you could do whatever you want here. We'll stick with 90 and negative 90 and 90. So the next thing we're going to want to go ahead and do is use well, let's show you what this does here. So just setting it up like this, we'll see what we have. Now again, this won't work for non-VR players or players using avatars without a collider. If your avatar has colliders on it, it may work. To get around that, we're just going to use an object we pick up to kind of push it around, because this card does have a collider on it. And as you can see, we can push it open and then it stops at the limiter. Now, obviously, this isn't swinging shut, so it's not working quite like we want. So what we're going to have to do is add a spring to it. The spring will act like a spring to bring it back to its position. So let's say 1 and 1, and target position is 0. And let's see what that does. Let's grab our card for our collider. And now when we push it, it goes back to its target position, like a spring is pushing it back. But that's not very springy, so let's adjust our spring down to, or our dampener down to maybe 0.2. And try again. Now it swings much more before eventually returning to its original position. So you can adjust those spring and dampening values to get in, kind of an effect on your whatever you're making that you would like. And that's really all there is for getting it to work locally on VR players that have colliders on their avatar, or if you're pushing it with an object. To get it to be networked, what we need to do is that's just a setting I like. We need to add a object sync. That will be enough to network the position of our door for other people to see what state it is in, as in how rotated it is. Now, I did figure out a way to get this to work for non-VR players using a trigger area collider and a script I made. So that will be on my Patreon under a super cheap tier. And let's just go ahead with the rest of this video and show you, in case you did want to set that up or get that, let's show you how you set that up. So in this case, we will need, let's go ahead and rename this. So Hinge your example. And what we're going to do is we're just going to add another cube to our door, child it so it follows the door, 0 at the position so it resets it, and we're just gonna have it be roughly the same size as the door, but it sticks out. So what will happen is when a player touches this, it will act like they are actually hitting the door with a collider. So what we're going to do is set it to a trigger and remove the renderer so it's invisible. And now we have an invisible trigger area. Now we need to add a new Udon behavior. And I already have the script made, and this will come as a package, so you don't have to set it up from scratch. But let's say you wanted to make more of them or make your own using the script. This is basically the steps you would follow. So we would grab the hinge door script I made, and we're going to want to target the door with the hinge, and we would want a push force. So this is our example. Push force 50 should work pretty good. And that's all you have to do. Now this will work for VR players, or non-VR players, excuse me. So let's go ahead and show this in a networked example. So let's get our first player in position, or one of them rather, and we'll have our second player line up to see the door. Do it from maybe this angle. Alright, now we should see the door move on our left screen when we touch it with our right. You can see that is the case. Our dampener is acting a little weird. I think maybe I had the value a little high or something. But we can see it is networked. So let's adjust the dampener a little bit and see if we can fix that. Let's set it to about 0.2 perhaps. So it still didn't stop perfectly, but it did seem to do a better job than before. So you might have to play around with the force and dampening values under the hinge joint and the script to get it to react exactly the way you want it to. But overall, this is pretty cool, and I can think of a couple various objects you could make using this kind of tech. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. Pretty neat little tutorial, nothing too crazy. And for some reason, I don't see like any hinge technology used in most worlds. It's not too hard to set up, and I think you guys could do it pretty easily. So I hope to see more of it out there. Let me know in the comments if you learned anything from this and got anything from value. Drop me a like or whatever. And that's it. Hopefully this gave you a solid start. Whether you're building your first VRChat world or just looking to add more polish to the one you've already got, these little systems can go a long way toward making your world feel interactive and alive. If you want to try this asset out before dropping it into your own project, I've got a public demo world set up. You can jump in, push buttons, test things out, and see exactly how it works in action. I always try to keep the demo world updated with the latest version, so it's a great place to explore and get ideas. And if this video helped you, or if you're using any of my tools in your world, consider supporting me on Patreon. It helps me carve out more time to make these assets, keep them updated, and put together more tutorials like this one. Even a small pledge goes a long way and means a lot. There's a link to both the demo world and the Patreon in the description below, so feel free to check them out. Thanks again for watching, and as always, see you in the next one.